Hey everyone, thanks for watching Bridgeport's Brightest Lights. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the many 50 plus effects in Xlights. So, let's get right into the video. So first off, if you don't know what Xlights is, I recommend you watch this video right here, or maybe it's right here, it's somewhere on the screen. It is a 3-hour long video, but it explains how to use all of Xlights. It is a little outdated, so if it does say like old version, check for a new version I might make in the future. Just quickly, Xlights is a way that you can program RGB pixels and use them in your light show. And Xlights can customize your lights and run them in so many different ways. There are 52 different effects in Xlights, and each effect has an average of 9 sliders or buttons or adjustments or different things you can do to them. Now, about half the adjustments are sliders, and most of these sliders can be adjusted from a value of 1 to 100, sometimes 1 to 50, and using some very rough estimations and averages, there are over 15,000 different ways you can program your lights in Xlights. This doesn't even cover using value curves, using more layers, using layer blending, layer settings. There is so many different ways you can customize and program your pixels, so it can be very confusing how to use each effect. So that's why in this video I'm going to be showing you how to use most of the effects. The reason I say most is because there's 5 or 6 out of the 52 effects I won't be covering. I'll show those effects right here on the screen and the little picture with them. The reason I will not be showing you how to use those is either I don't know how to use them, they need some sort of other file that you have to upload, you have to like create or generate something to use these effects, or you need to use the layer blending settings to get them to work. And I haven't explained how to use that. I haven't even explained it in my full Xlights video, which was supposed to be explaining how to use everything in Xlights. So that's why I won't be using those effects. Another thing, this list might change in the future because Xlights might get rid of some effects. They might add some effects so they won't be here. Currently, for this video, I am using version 2022.9 in Xlights. And then one bonus thing in this video is I'm going to be showing you how to use a brand new effect that was just added maybe a few weeks ago in the Xlights. And it is really cool. I might make a completely separate video about that effect because it is a little bit more difficult than all of them to set up, but I do explain it in this video too. If you came here only to see a certain effect, you don't want to know how to program all of them, then please use the time codes in the scrub bar right here, or you can go into the description. There are time codes and you can click them and it will take you to whatever effect you want to see. Now let's hop on to Xlights on my computer and I will show you how to use all of these effects. So I'm here on my computer and I have a test sequence opened on a test folder. It's not my main show folder. And all of the effects that I'll be showing you, I'm going to show them all on a matrix because that way you can see what the effects do. Except for a few of them that can't really work that well on a matrix. Such as the singing face, that works best on a actual singing face model. Or single strand, that usually works on arches. But I'll go over all of the effects, including this new effect that was recently added called the sketch effect. Now, like I said, there are a few effects I won't be going over, such as the DMX effect or the shader effect, because they're not really too important. So all of the effects are sorted in alphabetical order. So if you're looking for the plasma effect, you want to look in the P's, like you have pictures, pinwheel, there's plasma. The only two that aren't in order are the off and on effect, because these are really important and a lot of times they are used. But the first effect is the most simple. It is the off effect. It looks like this, and when you place it on a matrix, nothing happens. It turns off any lights on the matrix, and that's basically it. It turns them off. This effect works best if you have a whole house effect, such as like a pinwheel on the whole house, but you don't want a certain model to turn on. You can put this over top of it so it won't turn on. Now, I'm going to put an on effect, which I'll explain in a second right here, and I have it set to the color white. And you can change the off effect to be transparent. And when you turn this on, it allows the other effects to show through. So if you turn this on, it basically makes the off effect useless because now you can see everything behind this model. Now the next effect in line is the on effect. This is probably the second most simple effect next to the off effect. It allows you to turn on all of the pixels in the model any color you want. You can select the colors up here, But if you select multiple colors, it will only work with the first color in line. So I have a white, red, and green set. It's only white. But if I turn this off, there will be red because red is next up in line. So if I have yellow on, you won't see yellow. And if I turn off red, you still won't see yellow because it's not next up in line. So you can select multiple, but it won't really matter because only the first one will show up. Now the start intensity sets the brightness of the lights at the beginning of the effect. So you can have the lights start at 0% brightness, then go up to 100% brightness at the end, or start at 100% brightness and go to 0% brightness. So if I set this to 0, it will slowly fade in the effect. And if I set it to the end intensity to 0, that's the intensity at the end of the effect. So it slowly fades out. So if you have multiple in a row, and let's set them all to mainly the same length, like this, and I play it, it flashes quickly like that. So like if you have a drum in your music and you want it to go, all the lights on the model go boom, that would be a nice effect because you can make it look like a drum booming kind of. And then you can also go the opposite direction and have it start and then fade in. Anything you want. And the next setting in here is the transparency effect. So if I put another color back here, let's say in the second layer, I put the red color. The red color. You can't see it right now, but if you increase the transparency, you could start to notice the red come in. And if you put it in the middle, it's half of the green effect, and then it's letting other colors from the back fade in. Next up is cycle count. So let's say you want to do the thing where I just showed you and have it fade out, but really fast, like a drum would. But you don't want to have to manually add each effect. You could select how many times the start intensity will go to the end intensity. So if I set this to 5, it will go from the start to the end 5 times. So you can see right now it starts out at 100% brightness, then it fades out 5 times. You can make it go up to 100 times, but you won't even be able to see that because of how fast it goes. It's really flashy, and you don't necessarily want that unless you have a crazy song. You need to have it to be set at least 1 cycle count, though, if you want the start and end intensity effects to work. Finally, the last setting on here is Shimmer. This will basically make it flash as fast as it can with your FPS. But one difference with this is when you have Shimmer selected, you could select multiple colors, and it will shimmer between those colors. And you can't see it right now because of how fast it's going. Next up is the bars effect. This creates bars on your prop and makes them move in any direction you want. With this effect, you can select as many colors as you want. So I can have all these colors here, or I could have only one color show up, but then you can't see the bars because it's just one. So I'll select Christmas colors. The first setting on here is the palette rep. This determines how many times each color will show up on the prop at a time. So if I set this to like 5, red will be on the prop all at once at 5 times. So this basically increases how many sections are on there. Cycles is how many times each color will pass on the effect during the duration of the effect. So if I set this to 5, it basically speeds it up, and this red color right here will go around 5 times within the effect. You can make it go all the way up to 30 for really fast, or all the way down to 0 if you don't want fast at all, or less than 1. So I'll set it to a decent speed of 6. And then the direction is which direction it's coming from. You can have it go up, you can have it go down, you can have it go left, you can have it go right. Then there's some other ones that you can mess around with. Expand makes it expand from the middle. Compress makes it compress to the middle. And then H expand and H compress is basically the same except doing it horizontal. Alternate. Anything that has alternate means instead of it slowly moving up, it will flash up. So if I select some more colors, let's say, instead of moving up, they flash to the next spot so it doesn't look as smooth. Custom horizontal and custom vertical. This basically allows you to customize where it's at. So if you could see it, it's frozen right now and it won't move. So I could set it to 88. It moves to different positions. This allows you to make it move at different speeds. You cannot adjust the speed with it on custom. It won't work. What you have to do is create a value curve, and I won't go over that right now. I might make videos in the future about how to use these, but basically this sets the speed, and if I select this, it goes back and forth at different speeds. Finally, you have these 3 settings. I honestly don't know what highlight does. I don't see a difference. You can mess around with that and see maybe if you pick different colors, it might do something. 3D makes it have this 3D fade looks. So instead of the colors having a hard start and stop, they have a fade out. so they don't look like a big block. And then this makes the colors fade in with each other, so the green fades into the white, into the red, and it just makes it all look nice, so it's not big chunks again. Next up, you probably have the most beautiful and common effect is the butterfly effect. Everyone loves this effect because of how beautiful it looks, how nice it looks. Just, it's the most common effect, and if you want something really nice looking, you can use this effect. You can select the color, so if you want rainbow, that's what this is, or palette. This will use any colors that you have up here, so I can make it just, let's say, red and blue. There you go. Or you can select it to rainbow, which is the default rainbow colors in it. Style basically determines how the effect moves because there's different patterns. If you set it to number 2, it has this pattern. Number 3 is this pattern. Number 4 is the same pattern as the first, except the colors are moved around a little bit different. And you can mess around with all of them to find the effect that you like. Chunks basically determines if there's a gap in between it. So if I select a high number of chunks, it puts like 9 different sections in between the lines. Or if I select 2 chunks, then there's like 2 sections, I guess, in between, but you can't really see 2. I honestly don't know what this does. I don't notice a difference when it is at any position. So you can fiddle around with that to see if it does anything different for you. And then speed is how fast it goes. Obviously, you can make it go super fast or very slow. You can also select the direction, so normal or reverse. Reverse is going from left to right, and normal is going from right to left. Next, you have the candle effect, and what this does is basically gives off an effect that almost looks like how the top of a candle would look. You cannot select your own colors. No matter what you choose, they won't work. It has default colors in here to make it look like a candle. This effect changes the speed that the colors are changing at and how much it's flickering and stuff. This changes the speed of the wind that would make it change colors. And then this changes, this is like, I guess, the main adjustment for the speed. As you can see, it's going a little bit faster the higher it is. And then this, I guess, just makes the wind calmer. It doesn't really make much sense to me because I don't know why you need all of these different effects. Some of them don't make sense, so you have to fiddle around with them to make it look good for the way you want it. If you select per node, it makes each individual pixel act as its own candle, so it gives a kind of cool effect. But it is a little chaotic looking, but that's the candle effect. The circle effect does exactly what it says. It makes circles on the screen or the prop or whatever you're using it on. You can adjust how many circles there are, so there's a lot of circles. You can make the size of them bigger. You can make the speed of them faster. Bounce will make them bounce off of each other when they touch each other. If you have more circles, it's kind of chaotic to notice, but when you have less, you can see that they bounce off of each other. This just gives it a different effect, so all of the circles are zooming in. And then if you select plasma, this makes them look a little funny when they make contact with each other. They almost like connect to each other, and it's kind of cool looking. And then this one does basically what this one does, except it makes it look more rainbowy and different. And I'm not sure when you use this, maybe if you were trying to hypnotize someone with a matrix. But most effects, you have to remember, won't look exactly like this. Because if you have them, let's say, on a window, then you won't be able to see all of this. It'll just look like random pixels. Bubbles basically makes the circles hollow, so they look like bubbles. And then linear fade makes them have like a fade effect, so they look cooler. And that's all the adjustments in the circles. Next up is color wash. This does basically exactly what it says. It washes between all the colors selected. So if I select red, green, and blue, it will fade in between the red now into the green. And then after the green, it will fade into the blue. You can adjust how fast it does this by how many times it does this in the effects setting. So max speed makes it flash really fast. Vertical fade makes it fade on the top and bottom. And horizontal fade makes it fade on the left and right. Shimmer makes it flash as it's fading. And circular palette, that basically means if you're going from the beginning to the end, when it gets to the very last color, if you look at the effect right here, it goes back to red, so it doesn't make a hard stop. The curtain effect gives a curtain effect, so like it makes it look like a curtain is moving on or off a prop. You can select if there's this little bit of swag width right here, and you can make it bigger so the angle is more big there, or you can make it none so there is no angle there. You can also select how fast it does it, and you can select it to repeat. So if you make it fast enough, it can repeat it multiple times within the duration of the effect. If you don't select repeat and it's super fast, it will do nothing for the rest of the time when the effect is not playing. You can also select for the direction, so it could come from the center and separate. The right, so it'll go from the right. The bottom, so it'll come from the bottom. You can make it come from the middle, the top. And then you can select whether you want it to close, which I would think that's technically opening. But if the colors were to be the curtain, that'd be closing the curtain. Or you can have it then open, then close. Close, then open. So if I make this really fast, it bounces up and down. And surprisingly, I do use this effect a lot when I'm making all the lights fade up or down. And it does look really cool. The DMX effect, like I said, I will not go over. All it does is if you have a DMX prop, such as a moving headlight, you can adjust the channels here. But you don't need this if you only have pixels in your light show. The faces effect makes a singing face on whatever prop you use. So this only really works on matrices or dense mega trees or actual singing faces props. If you try to use this on a window, you won't be able to see it. But as you can see, it's a singing face effect. And that's why I have these words up here, hi, how are you? Because I'm going to make it say these words. I have some other props here in this 3D layout, and I'm going to move it over to the singing face, and I'm going to apply this effect on the singing face so you can see what it does. So for the mouth movements, you can manually select where you want the mouth to be. So it can make the L sound or an M sound, or you can make it go a W sound, an A sound, or you can select a timing track so it will sing along to whatever's in the timing track. This one called Empty has lyrics in it, so it will make its mouth movements say, hi, how are you? It's very slow because it goes over 10 seconds and you can't hear it because there's no audio to it. And then face definition, this will select what type of face it is, because some models allow you to have different faces so they look differently. I've never had more than one on here, so I always select the one. Eyes, you can select the eyes to always be open, always be closed, auto, which will make them automatically blink randomly, or off, so there's no eyes at all. So if you had like a creepy Halloween scene and you want a singing face to sing to it, it would look cool turning off the eyes. Show the outline, this will basically show an outline around it. So the first color in your palette will select it for the mouth. The second one will be for the eyes, and the third will be for the outline. But let's say you wanted red and green for the inside, but then white as the outline. You can't do that because of how this moves. So what you have to do is change one of the colors on the other side to white, so then white can then be the outline. And then I'm going to be completely honest, I have no idea what use state as outline means. I think it has something to do with setting a custom state with this effect. Suppress when not singing, this will make it so when it's not singing, for example, I'll play right here, it will turn off. So right here it's saying words, but when it passes the part when it's not saying words, it turns off. You can also select for it to fade out so it doesn't hardly turn off. And then you can select for how many frames you want it to fade out. So let's say 10 frames. So when it's done singing, it'll take 10 frames to fade out. So it fades out instead of coming to a hard stop. And then like with all the other effects, transparent basically makes it so the lights behind it can come in and you can see it, but there is no effect underneath it, so you can't see anything else. And next up is the fan effect. Now there are a lot of different settings on the fan effect. You can select the position of where the fan is, how the blades look, and some other options about it. So first, the radius 1 is how big the inside radius is, and radius 2 is how big the outside radius is. If you have the outside radius set to a lower amount, like let's say this much, the outside radius is only allowed to go that far out. But if you select it to the max, then it can take up the entire prop. You can also select where the X is and where the Y is. So maybe only you want to see this part. When they're both set to 50, that is the exact center of the prop. And then if you change the radius 1 to be a higher number, it will get rid of the middle. So it's like kind of a black hole. This would be cool though, so you can make it almost look like a sunrise and put a yellow inside and make it look like a sun. The angle will move around what angle that the fan blades move at. And then the revs is how many times it goes around in a circle during the entire effect. So if I select this to the max, it's going to go really fast. If I select it to closer to the minimum, it'll go a lot slower. Blades allows you to change stuff about the blades. So right now, there are 3 sets of blades. I have 3 colors picked. They are red, green, and white. so it will show red, green, and white 3 times. If I set this to 1, it will only show each one time. If I select it to 16, it will show each individual color 16 times and then make it look like you're about to be hypnotized. Look into my spiral. You are getting very sleepy. And once you fall asleep, if not already, you will move your finger over the subscribe button and click it when I snap. And then you can also select the width for each blade, so determines the width in between each section. So red, green, and white are in one section. So if I select this to the max or the minimum width, you can see that there's a big gap in between each section. This width down here selects how much width there is in between each individual color. So now if I select this to closer to its minimum, it looks like a bunch of funny lines. You can also adjust the angle. So like right here, there is more of a circle around it, or you can make it go in the other way. Or if you set it to 0, there is no angle, so it looks like a perfectly straight line with no bending. Elements is how many times the colors are next to each other, so you can make red be next to each other twice in a row. So if I set it to 2, now red, there's 2 reds, 2 greens, 2 whites. You can select this up to 5 or 4, I think. And then it's another spiral. And this spiral will make you like the video when I snap my fingers. Okay, enough of that, but so I usually leave it at 1 because it looks best at 1, but whatever the situation is, you can make it look different for however you want. Now you might be wondering, how does it make that circle at the end and fade out like that? That's because the duration is set to 80. So if you select it to a full duration, it's going to stay on the entire time. But if you select it to 50, halfway through, it will begin to fade out and make a circle, so it doesn't come to as hard of a stop and just shut off. You can make it fade out slowly like that. I usually just use a value curve on the radius 2 instead of using this, because sometimes this is a little more difficult, but also making value curves can be difficult if you've never done it before. Acceleration is how fast it goes at the beginning or the end, so I can make it go very slow and then it'll start accelerating to faster speeds like that. You can see it's starting to very fastly accelerate. Or I can put it the other way, so it'll start to slow down. If you want to have one speed, just leave it at 0. And then reverse, this will make the effect go in a reverse order. And then blend edges, this will make the nice fade effect in between there. But if you don't want that, you can uncheck it. And now it's a hole, but it doesn't look as nice as when you make it blend. The fill effect basically fills the prop with the selected colors you have. So I can select the position. If I only want 50% of the model to be on, I will set this to 50, and now you can see that it's not as filled. So you can make it fill up, kind of like with a curtain effect, but the only way to get that to work is also if you set a value curve. You can also select which direction the fill is in. So if I set it to down and then only want 50% filled in, it will only fill the top 50. Or I could do, let's say, the right, and then only 80% right now of the right is filled. Change color based on time. This will make it kind of do like what it does with a color wash. Offset will move it so it determines where the bottom or the top is. So kind of does like what the position does, except if I was to change this only to 40%, it's only going to show 40% of the middle based on where the offset is set. A lot of these effects can be confusing, and I recommend just messing around with the settings because it does help so you learn more about each effect. I don't know what offset and pixels or wrap does. I haven't really looked that much into them. And another thing, like I just said, you have to just mess around with them, different settings, to figure out which each one does. The next effect is the fire effect, and as you may have guessed, it makes fire. You cannot select any color you want on this. It's automatically set to fire colors. You can select how high you want the fire or how low you want the fire, so only the bottom will be lit up. But if, however, you do want to change the colors, you have to use this setting, which will change them so you can have blue fire or pink and red fire. And this is how you select the colors. You can make it grow, so it can grow and move up and down, kind of like real fire would. And then you can select grow with music. So if you have music, it will analyze the music, and as the music gets like more intense, it will grow, or if it gets less intense, it will shrink. And you can even select where you want the location of it to be, so the fire could be coming from the top, from the left, or from the right, whatever you want. The fireworks effect does exactly what it says. It creates fireworks like this. You can select any color you want, so I will make red, white, and green fireworks for Christmas, Or let's say you had a 4th of July show and you wanted to play this on your matrix, you can select red, white, and blue fireworks. The numbers of explosion is how many different fireworks there are at a time. 50 will give many fireworks at a time, and 1 will give barely any fireworks at a time. Particles in explosion is how many different pixels will be lit up with the explosion. So the higher there is, more different particles are lit up, and the lower it is, there's only like a few particles in each explosion. Velocity of particles is how far the particles are allowed to spread. So see how far they're spreading right now at the max. Or I could select it to a very low number so they don't spread as far. You can make it also move. So if you want the fireworks as they explode to move to the right, you can move this to the right for the X. They'll move to the right. You want them to move up, you can change the Y or down, and that'll make them go up or down. The location where they start, this will determine where the fireworks start. So if I didn't have these moving and I wanted the fireworks, let's say only at the top part, I would move this up to over here, and this will make a lot of the fireworks go to the right, and then move it up here, and that makes them go to the top corner. You have a few more settings down here, and I'm going to select these back to 50, which is the middle, so we can see them better. Hold color will basically make each firework stay its own color, but if you don't have that set, the firework is allowed to change colors. I'm not exactly sure what gravity does. I don't see a huge difference. Particle fade determines how long it takes until the fireworks fade out. So if I have it at a lower amount, it will fade quicker, and at a higher amount, it will fade not as fast. You can also make the fireworks fire at the same time with the music. So if the music gets more intense, they will fire, and you can select the trigger level. So if it needs to be really intense for them to fire, or not that intense at all. But I can't show you that because I don't have any music. This is just an animation. You can also make it fire with timing. So if I was to make timing marks with new timing track at different points, they will fire at the time of the timing track. So watch. Every time it passes a timing mark, it will make a firework go. Okay, now after fireworks, the next effect is the galaxy effect. And what this does is it creates sort of like a spiral in the middle that slowly like comes out at the screen. So the first settings is you can select where the X and Y of it is on the screen or whatever prop it is. This generally works better on a whole house, like using it as a whole house effect, or on a dense prop because you can't see it that well when it's not too dense. The radius is how big the circle is that it is making the spiral in. And the width is how big the lines are. And then you can also make an angle, so like what angle the spiral is at. And you can adjust the start and the end radius. So if you want to get smaller, you want the start radius to be bigger than the end radius. But if you want it the other way, you want the start radius lower and then the end radius bigger. And then it will come out into the screen like that. You can also adjust right here how many times or how fast it does it. The max speed is 10. So it can get really big, and then it also undoes it too right there. You can adjust the width of it again. And then you can also adjust the duration of how long this circle takes until it fills up the screen. And the lower the number, the longer it takes. If you have a super high number like this, you'll see you can never really see it making a line because it just keeps eating up the circle right behind it. Acceleration, this is like at the fan, so it can start slow, then slowly speed up, or it can start fast and slowly slow down. Reverse, you can make it reverse like with the fan. You can unselect blend edges if you don't really want them to blend that well. It still makes a neat effect. And then you can make it go inward too, so it looks more like this. Now is Garlands. This is a really cool effect because it makes it look like stuff is stacking up to make the model or whatever you have this set on higher. And I love this effect because you could change the colors and make it look like snow is falling and piling up. So I'm going to select Christmas colors first. Garland type. This is what type the lines are that are falling down. So you can make them look differently like this. You have zigzags. You have little arches, you have these bigger arches and these medium arches, or you just have regular lines. You have the spacing in between the lines for how much space you have, and then you have how many times you want this to repeat. So if I set it 5, it'll fill up and then reset 5 times. You can also select the stacking direction, so it can go down, it can go left, go right, go up then down, and then it can even go down then up. But like I said, if you select like some snow Christmassy colors. It looks like maybe not the dark blue. Like this, it looks like snow is almost piling up. Or just make it white, period. And then let's make it only do it one time. Slow it down a little bit. Maybe put some more spacing. There we go. Now it kind of looks like snow is piling up almost. This is a neat effect, and I use it when there's a big build-up to a part in the song. This effect I will not be explaining because it has something to do with uploading a file. I have no idea what this even is for. So don't ask me a single thing. And the kaleidoscope, you don't need to upload a file, but there's some stuff you need to do with layer blending. And I have not gone over how to use layer blending, so I won't be able to show you that. Plus, I even don't know how to use kaleidoscope because it's a little more confusing one for me. I tried to figure out how to use it, but I still don't know how. So I'll just skip over that one too. Next is the life effect. This basically creates like little dots on the screen and they slowly disappear. I'm not sure why it's called life. I guess it could look like life. I don't know. You can select how many cells there are to start, so how many lights start lit. So the lower the number, the less cells you have. The higher the number, the more lights you have. You can select the type. So there's some different types on here for what they look like. And you can select the speed, so how fast it goes. A cool effect that this could be like is if it's raining and you wanted to put this on a projector or something, like the song has something to do with rain. It almost looks like raindrops falling into puddles. Next up is lightning. This does exactly what it says. It makes it look like a lightning strike. I have done this in very intense parts of the song, such as Sarajevo or Christmas Eve at the end, or when I think I might have used it in Bang, the final song last year. I don't exactly remember. The number of segments is basically how many points you have in the lightning, so you can see like how it goes at a zigzag line, so how many zigzags there are. So the higher the number, the more zigzags. The lower the number, the less zigzags. You can make the width of the bolt bigger or smaller. So basically how far out it's allowed to move. I'd keep this at a lower number because it looks like real lightning better. Then you can make it forked lightning. It gives it a different effect to it. I'm not sure why it's called that, but I really don't know. You can select the X location, so like what part of the prop or model it's on. And then the Y location, so like if it doesn't take up the entire prop or not. You can even add movement to it, so it moves from side to side. And then this one that says not used yet does nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's not used yet, basically. They might add a setting that this could change to the effect, but you can do anything you want with this, it won't change. You can also select the direction to down, but I don't notice much of a difference. The next effect is the lines effect, and it creates lines on the screen. So right now there's triangles. So if I added 4 points, that would look almost more like a square. So if I added 2 points, which is the minimum you could do, it looks like lines. And then I could add more points to make it look like this jumbled mess of lines. I can select how many lines there are, so this just looks confusing. I can also adjust the thickness of the lines. That's what this does. I honestly don't know what the purpose of this is. I've used this one time, I think, in the light show on the projector, and it was in the Bang song. You can also select how fast it moves, so that is crazy. And then you can select to make it leave trails. So if I make the thickness a little lower, way less points, you can see how, like this, it's just the big blob. But if I add trails, it makes it have like a 3D look on it. You also have to click this though to make it fade, because if you don't, then it'll just be a big jumble mess. Next up is the liquid effect, and this makes it look, this almost looks like a snow effect with snow falling and then filling up, but it almost looks like there's a pipe above here with water falling down. I have actually only used this effect once. There are tons of settings on it. I don't know how to use most of them. I'll try to explain how this effect works. So the barriers select if you want a barrier on where the particles can fly to. So right now there's a bottom barrier. If I put a left barrier on, you can see the particles aren't allowed to flow to the left. And if I put a right one on, they're not allowed to flow to the right. I can even put a top one on, and now the liquid is confined to this box. So this makes a cool effect, like the water's filling up. There's also some different types you can use. I'm not sure what the difference is. You will have to go through and figure them out yourself, see what they look like, which one's better. And then there's this other setting called lifetime. I'm adjusting this. I don't notice any differences. So I'm not sure what that does. You can adjust the size, so how far spread out they are. The higher they are, the more spread out they are. The lower the number, the less spread out they are. Warm-up frames, I'm guessing, is how many frames the liquid has until, like, from starting at the top. So it makes that neat effect at the beginning where it explodes onto the matrix. This tells, I think, how long it's allowed to do that. Another setting, which I have no idea what it does. I don't notice a difference. I'm really sorry. I wanted to explain how to use most of these effects, but some of them I still don't know how to use myself because I don't find them useful. Gravity is a cool effect though, because if you have it set for the max, the particles will fall because of gravity. But if you have it set to the negative max, there is no gravity, so they keep rising to the top. So you can make it look cooler like that. And then I have no idea what these are that are labeled 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm guessing you can adjust where the position is, the flow. Okay, I see some difference. The biggest thing when you don't know how to use an effect is fiddle around with all the settings. Touch every button, check every single box, make it look like, just test to see what it'll look like. I'm gonna enable this second one, see. Oh, okay, so this allows there to be 2 different water paths in here. I honestly don't know what the purpose of this effect is. I'd also label this a jumbled mess. Next up, this effect puts a border around anything you want, and then you can make the border move. So, let's say you had text on, like, a panel or a matrix saying, subscribe to our YouTube channel, turn your radio to this, check us out on Facebook, blah, 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 blah. You can put a barrier around, or a border around it so it's more visible. You have to select a few colors for it. It's a little bit fast right now. Let me slow it down. As you can see, there's a border moving around it. You can select how many different pieces are in the border. So, like, how big each chunk is. The higher the number, the bigger the chunks. You can select if you want gaps in between them and the thickness. So if I set it just like that, now you have a nice border. Let's speed it up a little bit. And now you can put your text in here saying tune radio to so-and-so, and it makes it look a lot nicer. You can adjust the start position, so where the circle starts from. Maybe you wanted red to start up here and not down here. You can adjust that if you want to. You can also select reverse. And then position is where it is on the screen. So I can move it over so it only takes that little part of the matrix or whatever prop you're using this on. You can also use this on a mega tree. You can also adjust the Y2. And then this adjusts only the border. If you want to move the entire thing, you can with the X. So only make, let's say, this top half be circled. You could do that. And you can also warp them. So let's put this at the direct center and see what it looks like. And look at that. Doesn't that actually look kind of cool? It looks like a cross, and then you have different sections. You can make some cool effects with this. You just have to fiddle around with each setting and figure out how to make them look nice. But the main purpose of this is to put a border around something. Next up is Meteors. This is one of my most favorite effects. Not because of the effect by itself. If you add multiple layers and put some effects behind it, it does make it look really cool. So you can select rainbow, which is all these colors, or palette. So it will change or select all the colors from the palette. You can also select range. I'm honestly not quite sure what this does. It just picks some colors. You can make it go up. You can make it go to the left. You can make it go to the right. You can make it implode. I'm just gonna show you how to use it with down because this is the most common. And I'll select Christmas colors. So you can select how many different parts are falling. So like what the count of the number of meteors are, how long the length of the meteors are, so like the trail length of each. If you have a high count, you should make a low trail length. And if you have a low count, then you should make a high trail length. That's what I think. The swirl intensity is if they're moving while they're falling down to create a cool effect. And then obviously the speed to make it go faster. This effect looks really nice on a whole house group because then it just makes it look like it's raining colors from the sky and it's falling on the whole house. You can adjust the count based on the music. Nothing will happen right now because there is no music, so you can't see it. And then also if you select explode or implode, there are some other settings like horizontal offset, so where the center of it is. And then there's this other one called Starfield Simulation. It changes how it looks a little bit and it makes it look cooler. Next up is the Morph effect. When you get the Morph effect, this opens the effect assistant. This requires you to move around some different points in it. So basically you select the start and end levels, so where it will be. You can adjust them on here or using the effects assistant. What it does is it allows you to visualize what the effect will look like, so that way you don't have to manually do it on here. I haven't used this effect too much, so it's another one I don't know about. I'm really sorry. But just fiddle around with it. You can create some cool effects, and this is honestly my first time using the Morph effect. I've never used it. I don't really look at it that much. You can make it fade out, do some other stuff. There's some other familiar settings that you've seen in other effects I showed you. So like I always say, just fiddle around with the effects until you find something cool looking. The music effect requires you to add in music. So I'm going to add in music right now to show you how this effect will work. So I've just added in this song. The song name is called Home Alone 5-0. The reason I'm using this song is because it's copyright free. I'd prefer not to get copyright claimed. So this effect just basically puts different lines, different things on the model based on what's happening in the music. So like, let's see what bounce does. So bounce like makes it bounce back and forth on the model. Just on, what does that do? It keeps it on. You can select how many bars there are and what the notes need to be. I'm honestly not a huge music guy, so I don't know a lot about notes and stuff. You can adjust the sensitivity, so what the notes need to be like for it to make an effect. I probably only use 75% of these effects before in my show. I've just found these effects and I like them and I've stuck to them. But I do need to expand which effects I use to make my show better. But this is just another one where I'm going to have to tell you, you're going to have to fiddle around with the settings, because I'm not 100% sure how to use it. One last one I'm going to skip. I'm going to skip over the piano one. I tried messing around with it just now to figure out which each one does, but I need to put a lot of time into it to figure out what the effect does, and I don't have that time right now. I'm trying to get this video done. So, I'm just going to tell you, you're going to have to figure out how to get it to work. I tried putting some timing tracks down. It's supposed to act like a piano, but it's not right now. I'm not sure how to make it work like a piano. But the next effect I'm going to show is the picture effect. And I do know how to use this effect. When you open this effect, it will open the effects assistant. You don't really need this unless you wanted to draw your own picture. So I usually just close out of that. Basically what you can do here is upload any picture that you want to play or show during the show. So what you need to do is click browse and go through your files and find a good picture. I'm just going to select this picture right here. It is a picture of one of my older thumbnails for a video. When you first open it, it won't look like the picture you selected, and that's because you have to go to scaling, and you have to hit scale to fit, or one of these scale options you want. This is the thumbnail for how to wire a custom prop. That was an older video, and depending on how dense your prop is, you might not be able to read the words that well. So as you can see, you can't see them that well. If I hit scale, keep aspect ratio, it sometimes messes it up. I'm not sure why, so right now you can't see it at all. Or scale, keep aspect ratio, crop. That zoomed in a little bit. I usually just use scale to fit. Now, the words say how to wire a custom prop. It's a video I made, like I said. You could select some movement, so you can have the picture move from left to right, or right to left, whatever one of these you want. There's a lot of different ones you could do, like peekaboo 180. It will come in from the top and do like peekaboo. It will move down and then go back up. You have to make it really fast or shorter to get to see that well. So if it was a picture of an animal, you can make it like pop in then go out. You can make it bounce back and forth. You can also adjust the movement speed so it can move in a lot. You can do some other stuff, so just move straight down. There's a lot of different ones in here. You should check all of them so you can see all the different cool things you could do. You can adjust the frame rate. I don't quite know what this does. I don't see a big difference when I do it, but it probably has something to do with something that I don't know. You can make the image shimmer if you want by clicking this. And there's also a box right here that you can't click right now called Loop Animated GIF. You can put pictures or you can put GIFs in as the picture and you can choose to loop them. You can also do like what I've shown in other effects where you can make it transparent so effects behind it can start to show up. That's if you have multiple layers or something else. You can adjust where you want it positioned. There is a start and end position, but you usually don't need to use the end position. That's if you want to make it move at your own custom speed. For example, there's a setting in here called vector. If you click that, it will move based on what your start and end location is. So I have set this to start at negative 42x, and I can set it to end at 55x. So it's moving at the speed I've adjusted this. You can also change some stuff with the scaling, but basically this is just to show a picture. Anything you want. It can work with GIFs, and you can move it if you want, make it stay in one place. But it is a really neat effect to put a picture of anything into your display. Next up, we have the Pinwheel effect. This is an effect I use all the time. It's a very popular one. This is almost like the fan one, except the settings are a little bit different. First, you can select how many arms there are. So I'm going to select 3 colors. You can add like 6 arms. You can have 4 arms. You can select up to 20 arms, so it looks very crazy. I'll just leave it at 3, and then you can select the size. So this, let me make them thicker first. So you can select the thickness of the arms. So for the size, if you make this smaller, this is like the radius effect. So, or the radius setting in the fan effect. So this is how far the pinwheel is allowed to expand. So if I make not the speed, if I make the size bigger, it's allowed to take up more part of the prop. You can make it twist, so it looks like the fan effect. You can make it thicker, like I said, super thick, or barely any thick. You can make it go super fast, super slow, and then you can select the offset. So like if you wanted, let's say, white to start down here, but it starts up here, you can change it with the offset effect. You can select the old or new render method. I think this, if you select the old render method, it looks a little bit more pixely. I think they just updated it so it doesn't look pixely, but maybe some people like it like that. So that's why you could select the old one. This is the rotation. CCW stands for counterclockwise. If you uncheck that, then it'll go clockwise. You can make it 3D. You can make it 3D inverted. You can make it also sweep. You could choose where the X and Y axis is too. So it's basically just like the fan effect. If you put it all the way at the corner, it makes this really cool effect. Now we have the plasma effect. This is also another effect I use very often. This just makes the pixels look almost like plasma. So you can choose between some colors. Normal will choose what's in your palette. Preset colors, 1 is a bunch of presets. You have 2, you have 3. I really like using 3 because it's a big rainbow sometimes. And then you have 4, which is white and black. You can select the speed at which this stuff is moving. You can select the density, so how many different lines there are. And you can also add a twist to the effect, so it looks more twisty. Now we have the ripple effect. And this is basically another effect like all the other ones where it does exactly what the name says. So it creates like almost like a shockwave, and that's what this effect does, and I'll show that in a second once we get there. It creates like a wave that explodes on whatever your prop is. This one I'd say is probably good on the whole house or on a matrix or a dense prop, because if you do it on just a single prop, you can't see it as well, so a model group is usually better for this effect. You can change which shape it makes, so instead of making a circle, it can explode sort of and make a square. It can make a triangle. It can make a star. It can make a polygon. It can make a heart. It can make a tree. It can make a snowflake. It can make a cross. And then finally, it can make a present. So you can make a lot of cool designs with this. I'll just use the circle, and you can make it implode so it goes into the middle, or you can make it explode so it goes out. You can adjust the thickness, but when you make it thicker, it makes it each section around it, so it looks kind of funny. Let me select like something different. Yeah, so for this, it doesn't make as much of its own section. It kind of still does. It looks a little funny. That's why this, like I said, works on pretty dense props. You can adjust the cycle count, so how many times it does it. So I can set to 4, so it'll explode 4 times. And then whatever colors you pick, it will go between them. So if I select just white, it will be white the entire time. If I select white, red, and green, then it'll flash the colors between them. Points and rotations, those are only available with like other objects. I think it's mainly for the polygon. You can select how many points there are. You can also rotate it so it faces a different angle too. But these two settings, the points and rotations, are only available with certain ones. Like The candy cane, you can't adjust it. The star, you can adjust it, but you can't like adjust it for the tree. It's only certain ones. You can also adjust the X and the Y coordinates of it, so where it shows up on the prop. And then you can make it 3D, so it like fades more. The next two effects I'm gonna skip. The servo, basically, it controls the servo, and you don't need that if you only have pixels in your show, and I don't know how to use this. And then the shader is another effect where you have to open a file that I have no idea how you use it, so I won't go over that. The shapes effect almost does what the ripple effect does, except it creates multiple shapes. So you have shapes on the screen, and then you can select like the shapes to be squares, them to be like whatever shape you want. You can make an emoji. It looks like a Christmas tree. I'm guessing if you go through the numbers, it goes through different emojis. So you can pick tons of emojis. They have so many different emojis here. Just going through the numbers, you could find almost any emoji you can think of. You can select the thickness. You can select how many things there are. So you can have this large count, or you can have this small count where there's next to none on there. You can select what the size is at the start, so you can make them really big, but then you can't see them that well. And then you can select for them to have a random shape halfway through or near the end, or for them to be the same shape. Now, if they're the same shape, there's no difference, so it doesn't look as nice. Velocity makes them move upwards, so like they're moving up really fast, but if you put them to 0, it won't move at all. Direction just changes the order of how they move and where they show up on the screen. And then lifetime is how long each circle lives for. Growth adjusts how big they grow. So if I set the start size to the smallest and then give it a little less life, or a little more lifetime, you can see they start out really small. Let me give it its max lifetime. They start out really small, but then they get as big as you set the growth to. You can also adjust the X, the Y, the points, the rotations, but these only work with certain things again. So like with the star, you can select how many points there are. So you could have a 6-pointed star, a 4-pointed star, a 2-pointed star, but that doesn't really look like anything, or a 9-pointed star. You can select if they rotate, and this is once again only available with certain settings. You can select a random location, or if you don't select this, they'll all stay in the same location, but if you do, then they'll move around. Random movement will make them move randomly around, like you see. So you can make them stay and then quickly turn off, or you can make them slowly fade away. You can make them hold the color, but if you don't, then they will change color. And then fire with music. This is like another music effect. So if I move this over here and adjust the trigger level, so let's adjust this to the higher side. Then what does it look like? Now with this being to a higher trigger level, it will only fire on these big beats. Now if we make the lifetime really short, it might look really cool. And let's adjust the growth. So that basically just programmed that all for you. It fired perfectly with the music along with the beats here. So that is really cool, and you should adjust the trigger level, but I highly recommend using this because it works really well. Whereas with some other effects, the trigger level and the fire with music isn't as in sync, but this is a really nice one. Fire with timing track, this is also like the other one, so it'll only fire at your timing points. So I could select new timing, and like with the other effect, they will only fire at each timing mark. So let's watch this. So they fire at any time the music passed one of these timing marks, but you can see right here, they don't do anything because there is no timing mark. So if fire with music isn't working for you, or you don't like how it's working, you can manually do it with your own timing marks, and you don't have to use the same timing track. You can make another one called beats or whatever you want. Next we have a shimmer effect, and this is a pretty simple effect. It basically makes the lights shimmer. So you have to select usually use all colors, and now you can see all the colors are changing on the screen, and then you can select how many cycles it does or it flashes. If you don't select this, use all colors, then it'll just use the color as a whole and flash very quickly. So you could slow this down to like 22, so it flashes like that. If you select this, I think this basically uses settings in a 2017 version of Xlights. It looks different. I'm guessing that's just how the settings work then. And then this selects how big the gap is in between each cycle. So if I set this to the max, there is no gap. But if I set this to, like, let's say the middle, there's a medium-sized gap in between each flash. But if I set it to the lowest, there's like a very large gap in between each flash. And then you can select all colors, so flash between all the colors and make an effect like that. Next is the Shockwave. I really like this effect, especially on whole house and dense models. And it usually only works that well on groups and like that. So first you select where you want the Shockwave to be, so I can move the X around and the Y around. 50, like all of them, is the middle. And then radius 1 is the inside radius, so how big it is on the inside. And then radius 2 is how far it expands. So if I make it bigger, it expands farther out. I can make it big to the max, but then you can't see it because it goes past the screen. And then width 1 is how big the hole is in the middle. And then width 2 is how thick the actual Shockwave part of it is. So you can adjust these so your Shockwave is really big with a lot of lights, or you can make it really small with next to no lights. Under options, you can select blend edges. If you don't, it won't have that 3D fade. It'll just be whole, sort of like that. And then you could do acceleration like with a bunch of the other effects, where it starts off really slow, but then accelerates and gets really fast. Or you can have it start off fast, but then slow down. Next is the single strands effect. And this effect works the best on the arches, or any arches that you have. Now this effect has 3 different effects built into it. So the first one is the chase, where it's chasing it like this. You can make it go left to right or right to left. You can make it bounce from left. So if I speed this up, it'll bounce from the left and go back and forth. Whereas if it's just left to right, it will go like that. You can make it go from the left and the right and bounce back and forth with 2 of them. You can make it go from the middle, and you can make it go to the middle, and then you can make it bounce to the middle, and then bounce from the middle. You can also make it fade, and you can make it, if you select this when it's on arches, instead of the effect working by itself for each arch, it will use all of the arches together, but when you click that, you can't see it that well on here because this isn't an arch. Basically, it just changes the direction. Number of chases is how many sections there are in here. So if I set this to like 4, there's 4 sections. You can set it up to 18, or I mean 20, but then you can't see it at all. The chase size is how thick it is, and then the cycles is how many times it does it within the effect. So if I set this to the max, it'll bounce back and forth really fast. You can select it to use the colors on your palette or rainbow colors. Now skips is a completely different effect where basically it flashes back and forth. So if you ever seen one of those signs outside a building with the lights around them, the big incandescent lights, and they flash around, that's kind of what this does. So first you have to start off with number of advances. This is how many times it moves throughout the duration of the effect. So 40, it will move 40 times during this 10 seconds across here. The band size is how big each section is. So you can make it small with a lot of sections or big with not as many sections. You can also put bigger gaps in there with the skip size or smaller gaps. And then another thing, like with a lot of the effects, is you can get to adjust the start position. So right now it's starting with a white. But if I move the start position a little bit, it will start with a different color, like green. So now if I click it from the start, it'll start halfway through with green. And then you can make it go left or right or from the middle, so it kind of spreads out. And then I'm going to be completely honest with this FX one. This is brand new to me. I've seen this setting here for a few months. I think it was within a recent update. I have no idea what it does, so let me look around at it for a second and see if I can figure out the settings. Okay, after messing around with this for a few seconds, there are so many different possible settings on here. I am not going to go over each one. I quickly looked at them. Basically, it creates these cool effects. So you start with the effect up here. I'm just going to pick a random one. Let's see what wipe does. Okay, so it wipes it across. Let's find another one that I saw cool. Sparkle. Okay, that makes it sparkle. Ripple, rainbow. Okay, this is a cool effect. Then you can adjust the colors. These are all the possible colors you can pick. So random, we'll pick random colors. I think color 1 is, yep, that's your first color in your palette selected. colors 1 and 2. These are the first two, not the first two colors in your palette, but the first two you have checked off. And then all of your colors that you have, so I could select any color and then it will use all those. And then this setting will make the colors like fade into each other. You can adjust the intensity of the effect, so how many things there are, I guess, in the effect. And then you can adjust the speeds for super fast or super slow. This is another one of the effects where you will have to mess around with this yourself and tweak the settings and just figure out the best one, because it is very confusing with a lot of the settings. But trust me, if you just spend a few minutes testing each setting, you will find something you love and have your own personal unique effect. Now this effect, the sketch effect, this is a brand new effect within a recent update. When you open this, it will open the effects assistant. You need to have the effects assistant to get this to work. I will just move this over here. Basically with this, you upload an image onto the effects assistant, then you outline it. And then this will outline the effect that you make. So watch, if I draw on here, hit start with the path. When I click, it's creating this path. This is the path on the screen over here where the pixels will show up. So I'm going to make this a triangle. And if I want it to connect exactly to this point, I could come down here and hit close. That will make it so it closed it itself. And then if you look on here, this is what it will look like on the matrix. First, it draws the tree thing that there is in the background. And then it draws my triangle that I made. But you can get rid of the tree, and I'll show you how in just a second. So first, you can select a background image. So I'm going to hit browse, and I'm going to look for an image that I can use. So I've selected this image. It's a picture of an arrow. But first, to get rid of all the lines, what you can do is hit this clear button. And when you do, all the lines that you have made will go away. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. Now, the settings over here. This will adjust how bright your image is. So you can see it fully, or you can make it more transparent so you can draw your lines around it. So let's say I wanted the matrix to draw out this arrow. What I need to do is manually draw it myself. So I hit start, select the first point. Let's move up to here and then click to put down the point. And then I'm just moving my mouse, not clicking at all. And then click to place it. I'm going to move it down here and click. And then if I wanted to end it right here, this is where I'd click end. And now you see there's nothing here. But if I want to hit continue, this will continue the line. So I can go to this one. But if I wanted to make this perfect, I can hit this close button. And this will automatically close it for me. And now you can see on the matrix, it is drawing the image that I have on here. So if you wanted to upload some fancy image and have your prop make that same image without there being background of the image or anything, you can manually draw it here. You can also do multiple lines. So I'm going to make this random shape right here and I'll close that. And if I hit start again, you can still see these lines are here, very faint, and then I can draw a second image like that, and then I'll hit end like that. So now over here, it will draw both of them just like that. And it will do it also in the order that you drew them. And then if you want to select to edit a certain path, like you can hit continue to continue your path, so I can make this weird shape. So now if we look at it, it will do this. If I wanted to edit the first one, the way you do that is select the path 1. This is my first path. And then you could click any of the points and then move them around to adjust them. Now the draw percentage, this will basically select how much it draws within the time that the effect is running. So if I set this to the max, it will draw it very slow and it won't be able to finish it within the 10 seconds. And then you can also select the thickness of it. So now it's really thick. So like I said, if you had a really fancy item, let's say you had a present with a fancy bow on it that the Xlights didn't have in any of the other effects like the ripple or the shapes effect, and you wanted to draw it yourself manually, this would be a really cool effect. You can also add motion and change this around so your drawings will move. So watch, as it continues on, the end gets erased basically, so it moves around. The snowflakes effect basically is another effect that it does what it says. It makes snowflakes that can fall. So first you have these snowflakes right here, and you can select how many flakes there are, so the maximum number. And the max you can do is 100, so it looks like a really cool snowstorm. you could select the type. So if I set this to number 2, it will give it these funny looking snowflakes, and I'm only going to select the color white. Well, that blue does make them look cool though. So if I select multiple colors, now we have these cool looking snowflakes. You can make them different shapes and sizes by selecting the number here. So this looks more like regular snowflakes because they kind of have the point. Type 0 uses all the other types at the same time. I'm just going to use type 2 because this looks really cool how it is moving with both colors. You can make it go a lot faster or really slow. If you make it slow, it's kind of glitchy. And then you can select whether they're driving or falling. So if they're falling, it looks more like they're falling. And if you hit falling and accumulating, they will fill up the bottom and eventually fill up the screen. So if I make this as fast as it can go, it will slowly fill up the bottom. Now we have the snowstorm effect. So this is like the snowflakes effect, except it makes it more look like an actual storm. If you have it on a really dense prop or the whole house, it'll look like it's blowing like this. But if you have it on a single prop, it will only look like the snowflakes effect. You have basically the same settings. You have how many flakes you want. So the maximum amount is 100. That will put a lot on there. Or the minimum of 0, that will put none. And if you have a really small amount, there won't be too many. It will use whatever colors you select. So you can select as many colors as you want. These are Christmas colors. You can adjust the length of how long each flake is. You can make them really short. And then you can adjust the speed. So it looks like a really cool snowstorm. Then we have the spiral effect. This is an effect I use all the time in my light show. So you could select any color with this effect that you want. And for this, I'll just select Christmas colors. You could select how many sections you have in here, like with a lot of the other effects. So you can have a lot of sections or only a few sections. You can adjust the spiral wrap, so how far it's tilted, so you can make it really tilted, or you can make it go the opposite direction, or you can put it as 0 and then it'll just be straight lines, kind of like with the bars effect, except there'll be a gap in between. You can adjust the thickness of each section to make it really thick or to make it really thin. And then you can increase the movement for how fast it moves. You can make it go up to 20, which is really fast, or negative 20, which is really fast the other direction. But the longer it is, the slower it will go because it moves like 20 times within that effect. So see how it's longer, it's going slower. But if I make it really short, then it goes extremely fast. You can make them blend so they look like each individual section will have each color in it, so it fades in with the colors. You can make it 3D, so it has this fade look on it. You can also make it grow, so as time will go on, the spirals will grow, or you can make them shrink. One thing I like to do with this effect is set the movement speed to 0, so there's no movement, and then put a value curve on the spiral wrap, so it moves back and forth like this, almost like spotlights shining or something. If you don't know how to use a value curve, like I said, I might make a video in the future about it. Now this effect, the Spirograph, this creates spirals on the screen. So I haven't used this effect too much, so it's another one where I don't know how to use it that well. You can select the radius of the outer circle, the inner circle, the speed. This number, the radius of the inner circle, needs to be smaller than the outer circle. And then you can make it do these little spiral effects. You can adjust the width of them. You can make the length different. You can add different animations to them. So then it almost looks like it's zooming in. And then you can select the distance. So let me set this to 0. And then you can select like how close it is, if it's zoomed in or if it's zoomed really far out. And you can also use multiple colors with this effect. But sometimes you can't see them unless you have it zoomed in a lot. And then you can also adjust the speed so it goes really fast or really slow. Next is the state effect. This is another effect that I'm not going to be explaining because I don't know how to use this at all. I think you might have to upload some files or something, but I haven't used it before, so I can't explain how to use it. Next we have Strobe. This is almost like Snowflakes and Snowstorm again, except the flakes don't move. They flash from different places. So you can select as many colors as you want. I'll do Christmas colors. You can select how many lights are in there with the number of strobes. So a higher number means there's a lot of lights. A lower number means there's not as many lights. You can select how long you want each one to last, so it goes really slow or really fast. You can also change the type. The strobes have like different shapes to them depending on what you set this number to. And then you can also make it react to music. Next up, this effect basically creates different lines of shapes, and I would label this as one of the jumbled, messed up effects. There's a lot of different settings you can select, and you can select the movement. So random right now, you can make it go like in a square shape. You can make it a circle shape. Horizontal zigzag, and return. Vertical zigzag. So I'll put this on circle for now. You can tune the movement of it, so like how big or how small each circle, square, whatever shape you have it set to is. You can adjust the thickness of the line, the friction of the line. This setting makes the outside of it go farther out the higher it is. The tension creates more lines before they disappear. So if you set the tension to a high number, it like almost creates this portal that it looks like you're falling through. You can select how long the trail is, so I can make the trail really long. You can also adjust the length. So this is almost like the trail setting, so now it's a small one, but if I make it long, it's a really long length. And then you can adjust the speed so it's slow or so it's fast. Horizontal offset, so you can move it to the left, you can move it to the right, you can move it up, and you can move it down. And then manual X and Y, you can only adjust those if you put this on manual. And then you can adjust where the line is on the screen. The next effect is a pretty simple effect. It's the text effect. It allows you to put text on anything you want. This effect works best on a dense model. It doesn't work too well on whole house. Sometimes it does, depending on how your layout looks. I usually use this on our mega tree or on our projector. You can type any text you want, but the more text there is, the less you can fit onto the screen to make it really big so you can't see it as well. So I'll just type Merry Christmas. Actually, I'll just type Christmas to make it fit. You can select any colors you want. So right now it says Christmas. I can add more colors into it. Or I could use one color. I'm just going to use Christmas colors. And then you can adjust the font size. So you can make it look like any of these fonts here. You can make it bold. You can change the size so it's bigger. Now it's getting bigger. Let's make it just big enough so it can fit on the screen, but not be chopped off. This is about as big as you can get till it chops off. Then you can also use these fonts right here. You can add movement to it. So there's no movement right now. You can make it come in from the left. You can make it come in from the right. You can make it come up. You can make it do something wavy where it bounces up and down. You can adjust the speed of it. And then this checkbox, if you check it, it'll move to the center and stop. So if I make it come in from the left, it'll go to the middle, then stop right there. You can add an effect so it's a vertical text. So it says Christmas vertically. This is best if you're using on a mega tree, so you can fit more words if you just make them vertical. You can make them vertical down. You can rotate it. You can't really see it on the screen right now that well. So right here, you can make it kind of rotated. You can also add a countdown. So if you put in seconds and then you put in a number, let's say 90, it'll start at 90 seconds and count down. So you could, let's say you have a sequence that plays 5 minutes before New Year's Eve. If it continues on to the next year, you can have a countdown at the perfect timing. And then this is the effect that I use to make the countdown in the final countdown song that I release on New Year's Eve. And then another thing you can do is you can move around the position of it. So where it is on whatever prop you have, you can make it go vertical up or down. And then there's another setting called the end position here. But if you adjust this, you'll notice nothing happens. And what you can do is if you select the movement to vector right here, whatever you set the end position to be is where it will go. So I can move it here and it will move down this small amount because it starts here, and then by the end of the effect it will go down there. Next we have the tree effect, and I've used this effect once before, but I'm not quite sure exactly what it's supposed to do. So you can select how many branches there are. I tried putting this on a tree model or on a tree prop that I have. It didn't look the best, but you can use it. So you can select how many branches it has, and then the speed, and show tree lights. And then you'll see that it has tree lights here. So if we turn off some certain colors, and let's say we make black the first color, you could put lights on the tree so it looks like lights are on the tree, but they flash back and forth. So I'm not quite sure how this is supposed to work. I used it once, I think, in the 2021 Halloween show for an effect, but it didn't look too great, I don't think. Next, we have the Twinkle effect. This is an effect I use all the time. One of my main effects that I use. It's a really cool effect, and it can be calm. So let me select some different colors. I'll choose Christmas colors. You see, it's almost like the strobe effect, except it fades in and out. You can select how many light stars, so you have a lot or a small amount. You can select how fast it moves, so the bigger the number, the slower it moves, but the lower the number, the faster it moves. If you select snowflake colors, it looks really nice. You can make it strobe so it flashes crazy like this. Or you can make each light move to a different spot after each twinkle. You can also set it to the old render method, and then this creates lines. But if you use the new render method, then it's more random. Next is the video effect. I use this effect a lot in songs where there is a video related to it. You have some settings over here. First, you have to browse and find a video. So I'm going to look for a video quickly. So I found a video in last year's classic Christmas light show. I had the Mr. Grinch song play. So I also played the video that went with it. So you can browse it and then it'll show the video on here. You can adjust what time the video starts at. So if you want to start in the middle, you can move this all the way to the middle and then it'll start at that particular spot. You can select the duration treatment. So if you set this to normal and then the video ends before the actual sequence song ends, then it'll have a blue screen at the end. But if you don't want that, then you can hit normal, no blue. You can make it loop, so it'll play it again. You can make it slower or accelerate. Then you can set to manual or a manual loop. Now maintain aspect ratio. This will make it so if you want it to be whatever the ratio is, it will set it that way. But if you notice, it actually makes it more funny looking, so I don't usually check that. Then you can crop it, so I'll crop it off the left and right. And then now it's really zoomed in, so it looks really funny. You can also make it transparent, and you have to check this box to be able to do that. So it'll actually make certain colors transparent on here, which is kind of cool. And then you can check this box to synchronize the video with the audio, because if you upload a video, there will be no audio with it. You have to upload the audio onto your timing track up here, and you have to get it perfectly in sync or it will look funny. And then I've checked that box before to make it synchronize, but I've noticed it doesn't synchronize it too well, so I usually do it just manually. Next is the VU meter. This effect has a lot of different settings, and basically what it does is it creates a meter for the volume depending on what the song is like. So if I move this to the crazy part of the song and play it, as you can see, it makes a meter for the lights and it moves up and down and stuff. There are a ton of different patterns in here that I will not go over, but you can select it so it does certain effects when the volume gets to a high level. Volume bars is the most common one I use, and it goes to the bottom. You can adjust the gain. So the higher this is, the higher the audio will go when there's a beat or something. So like this. And then that's basically all you can set. You have to go through, and if I choose this, let's pick note level jump, then it gives you some more settings and stuff. I'm not going to go over all of them because I don't use this effect too often. I only use it for the waveform or for the volume bars. And a lot of times I'll select one and they don't work at all. Like sometimes it won't do anything. But this is one of those effects where you're going to have to go through, manually adjust each setting until you find something you like with it. And then this effect, the warp effect, I won't explain because this involves layer blending, something I haven't gone over yet, so I won't explain how to use this. But the final effect we have is the wave effect. This creates a wave on the screen, and you can make it so it looks like that. You can make it a triangle, you can make it a square wave, you can make it move up and down, you can make it also look like this, which I'm not quite sure what it's doing. You can mirror the wave, so it will have two waves on here, or just one, and then you can adjust the number of waves, so how many waves there are. The fewer there are, the more it actually looks like it's moving up and down. You can adjust the thickness, and then how high it's allowed to go. You can adjust the speed. You can make it go left to right or right to left. And then you can adjust the Y offset. You also have to select the fill colors. So if you hit none, it will only use white. If you hit rainbow, it will use rainbow colors. And if you hit palette, it will use whatever you have selected in your palette. This effect works best on groups or dense models. but if you use it on a single prop that's not really dense, you might not notice it that well. So that is how to use all the different effects in Xlights. I know this was a really long video because I want to explain how to use each individual effect. I know some of them I didn't explain too well, and that's because I don't know how to use them, but I want to include as many effects as I can. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions of anything I should or should not have in the video, leave them down below. I read all the comments. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.